talk to you about this morning is really how are you able to be a scholar athlete here at the Anza and be successful. And there are a lot of things you need to know and a lot of things you need to do both on and off the field to be successful. First and foremost is really knowing your way around the campus, knowing how to make good decisions, understanding how to have strong study habits, and also knowing what are the things that if you do them on campus will get you in serious trouble, and how do you avoid getting into serious trouble, which I don't believe any of you all here will, but I think it's important for you all to know what the standards of conduct are, what your rights are, what your responsibilities are as students and athletes here at the Anza. So, I want to start first with a little concept that some of you may or may not have heard of called emotional intelligence. And really, emotional intelligence is the ability to harness your potential and your talent and all of those things that you possess within to be able to achieve your goals. And you have a lot of people walking around that are brilliant. I mean, they're 4.0 GPAs and they're academically really at the top of their class, but they don't always have the ability to interact and work well with other people around them to help them be successful. So emotional intelligence is sort of the intersection of your natural intellectual ability along with your ability to manage relationships with others and understand yourself, and using all of that to be able to harness your talent towards success. And a lot of you do that already. The fact that you're here and you're athletes shows that you're able to do that already. So really, it's the ability to identify, use, and manage emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others. And empathy is a really important thing that all of us have to develop throughout life in order to understand other people and ourselves. How to overcome challenges, because you all will and do and have faced challenges in life. And really understanding how to diffuse negative emotions, because negative emotions often cause us to make mistakes and to do things that get us in serious trouble at times. So it's really understanding the emotional intelligence and how that comes into play with decision making. Okay, so let's get a visual understanding. I want to do this because I'm a visual person. I'm a visual learner. There are different learning styles, of course. Some people are visual learners. They learn better by seeing. Some people are auditory learners or learn better by hearing. Some people are what we call kinesthetic learners. Those are people that learn best by doing. So I want to make sure that those of you that are visual like me are able to sort of get a picture of what this is. And so really, if you look at it, EQ, which is sort of a short acronym for emotional intelligence, is really self-awareness, awareness of others, you know, the actions that you have towards yourself and that you do yourself, and those actions and how they relate to others. Your self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. And those are really important key things that you'll have to master as you move, of course, from where you are now into adulthood, your life, your career, and your future. So some attributes of EQ. Some of the things that demonstrate that a person has emotional intelligence really involves in four major key areas. Self-awareness. You recognize your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts, your behavior, your strengths, your self-confidence. All of us deal with that at some time or another, you know, lack of self-confidence in an area. The things you're strong in and the things that you need to develop, or weaknesses. I don't like to say weaknesses, but really the things you need to work to develop. Self-management. It's really you're able to control those impulsive feelings and behaviors and manage your emotions in a way that's healthy, and that you take initiative and that you fulfill your commitments. How many people in this room have had a situation where someone made you so angry, you want to just beat the hell out of that person? Yeah, I can raise my hand too. Okay, and I'm probably, some of you are not raising your hand, but you thought about it, to be honest. It's really important to manage yourself. You're able to think about, okay, yeah, I want to beat the hell out of this person. Do they make me mad? Yeah. Do they really deserve it? Hell yeah. But is it the best thing for me to do? And what's going to happen to me if I do it? And are there going to be consequences? It's really important to think through those processes before you act, or before you do something you regret. And we've all done things we regret, including yours truly. Okay? Social awareness, helping you to understand the emotional needs and concerns of other people. Have you ever been around somebody who really just doesn't seem to care about other people's feelings? They're really insensitive, they make comments or they do things that are hurtful to other people and don't seem And that person, unfortunately, hurts other people because they lack empathy. And empathy is a really important part of how we relate well to others. And then, of course, relationship management. How do we manage our relationships with our coach, our teammates, our family, our friends, our loved ones, all those people around us that are an important part of our lives? That's really key. And a person who demonstrates emotional intelligence is able to do that. So why is it important? If you are emotionally intelligent, you're able to recognize your own talents, your own strengths, and your own emotional state, and you're able to use that to relate well to other people, you're able to work well as part of a team, and you're able to achieve more success in life. So really I want you to think about two questions. What does emotional intelligence mean to you? And how will you seek to enhance the emotional intelligence capabilities that you have now? Does anyone want to answer that question or either of those questions for us? Kind of brainstorm about that briefly? Yes.
I think emotional intelligence means how well you can handle your emotions in any situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then there are a lot of ways you can seek to enhance your emotional intelligence. It's really thinking about who you are, thinking about what's important to you, thinking about how you interact with other people in different situations, thinking about how you react to different situations, and then thinking about times that you reacted well and what was good about that and how you can replicate that, and think about times you didn't react well and how you can then sort of avoid that in the future. We'll talk about making good choices later on in the presentation. That was very good, thank you. Rules of engagement. Your student rights, responsibilities, and expectations we have with student behavior while you're here at the end, both as a student and an athlete. And I want to emphasize both because while you are all athletes, and that's the capacity in which I'm speaking to you, all of you also are students, and I want you to take your studenthood and your academics just as seriously as you do your athletics. Because it's going to be both of those things that are going to help you be successful throughout your life. And at some point, it's going to be your education that you're going to lean more on in your life. Okay? So, your student rights. In the classroom, you have the right to express yourself freely, and that freedom of speech is protected. You have the right to be graded fairly, so to be protected from improper academic evaluation or unfair grading. You have the right to not have your personal information disclosed by the college unless you were to provide permission. You have the right to associate with whoever you want, whether it be teammates, club members, whoever. You have that right. You have the right, what we call freedom of inquiry and expression. In other words, in classes, when you're in open discussion, you have the right to ask questions and the right to express your opinion. And that's very important. You also have the right to participate in institutional governance. And we actually have a body called DASB, or the Anza Student Body, that is your voice on this campus in issues and matters of what we call governance or leadership or decisions that are made that affect all of you. You have a right to participate in that. You also have a right to either read and or participate with our student publications. We have a great newspaper here called The Rose. You have a right to write a letter of the editor, even if you think what the editor wrote sucked. You have a right to express your opinion there, as long as it's respectful. You have a lot of rights here, and it's important to know what they are, and it's important that you value those rights as a student and as a citizen, because as a member of our society, each person has these rights not just here, but also within the culture at large. So we do have standards of conduct here. And we really have certain principles that we feel are really important as members of the community. And we don't just consider the Anza College, we consider this a community where each of us interacts with each other effectively and helps and supports each other toward achieving goals, whether they're academic goals, personal goals, or whatever that is. So we expect mutual respect. We expect you to respect each other as students. We expect you to respect your instructors, administrators, staff members, anyone here, and they also are expected to respect you as well. We expect you to pursue your studies with honesty and integrity. That is really important. So we expect that you're going to be honest, that you're going to do your own work, that you're not going to have someone else do your work for you, or cheat, or plagiarize, or any of those things, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We also expect you to respect the college property and the personal property of other people while you're on this campus, and also to comply with all rules and regulations. Okay? Now I'm going to kind of shorten my presentation a little bit. This information is available on the college campus website, and it also mirrors when you all signed as students. You all signed a code of conduct, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
And as athletes, you sign that contact of what your expectations are, what our expectations for you are. That's the very thing that gets signed.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a couple different kinds of violations. We have what we call academic violations. And those are things such as cheating, plagiarism, selling notes when in an unauthorized situation where you're selling instructor notes, which is not okay. Dishonesty, forgery, providing false information to the college, either in writing or in person, or misusing your records or your identification or someone else's. Also, theft or abuse of computer time. We do have computer labs on campus, and we expect that you're not going to use those computers to interfere with any of our computing systems, to send abusive messages to anybody, to use someone else's password to change your information in a way that's illicit, not to interfere with the work of faculty, staff, or other students using our computers. That's just the general gist. We also have. And then also, of course, we look at the difference between plagiarism and cheating. Okay? So we have two types of dishonesty there. We have cheating, which is basically copying in whole or in part from someone else's test, submitting work that was previously submitted by you, but not with the permission of the instructor to another class. Using or consulting some sort of electronic device during an exam. We've had caught students with answers on their phones and trying to text each other. And students have done some crazy things. And one of my responsibilities is when people cheat, they have to come see me.
You do not want to make her angry.
And you do not want to see me. You do not want to see me under those circumstances. I'm always there for advice, information, support, be here as a resource, but you do not want to see me. And trust me, it's not funny. So I'm just going to tell you, you don't want to have to see me. So that's cheating. Okay, plagiarizing is a form of cheating, but it's different. It's done in different ways. Really, plagiarism is writing a paper or an essay or an assignment where you're using someone else's work and you're not getting the credit. And, or you're turning in someone else's work as your own. Or you're getting information off of a website, or you're buying a paper for someone and you're turning it in. That's not okay. Yes.
Or you're trying to help out a friend by doing it for them.
That's right.
So it's not like they did it for you. If you did it too, you're all in it.
That's right. And so speaking of that, I'm going to give you guys a little scenario. You have Antonia and you have Bobby. Okay? Antonia is a female soccer player and Bobby is a male soccer player. And they both know each other because their teams, practice and they know each other and they're good friends. And Antonia has worked her tail off. She has busted her tail. She has studied, she's gone to practice, she has worked, she's taken care of her family responsibilities. She has run herself ragged trying to do well in her classes and do well academically. Okay? Then you have Bobby, who's been hanging out with his friends, he's been partying, he's been doing all this other stuff that has nothing to do with his Bobby has not been taking care of business. He's been not responsible. He's been blowing off his assignments. And so it comes to the day of the final exam. And the final exam is worth 50% of the grade in the class. Okay? So, Antonia's ready. She's got her Scantron. She's got all her pencil sharpeners. She is ready. Just before she walks in the class, Bobby walks up and says, "Hey, girl, I'm really kind of in a bind, and I know, we kind of hang together, and I'm wondering if you can do me a favor. If I don't pass this exam, I'm going to fail this class, which means I'm not going to be eligible to play. Would you do me a favor and let me sit next to you? You don't have to do anything. Just make sure I can see your paper during the test." Tonya thinks about it. Bobby's her friend. They kind of kick it. They went to the same high school together. They know each other really well. And so they decided, what? She decided, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. She's taking her exam. He's sitting next to her. He's looking at what her answers are. He's filling them out. The instructor, of course, is standing there watching this whole thing go down and is peeping the whole thing out. Okay? So as soon as the test is over, they turn their tests in, the instructor looks, of course their answers are identical. She asks them, can she see them? Can I see you for a moment before you guys leave? She comes up to them and says, you know, I've been watching everything that's been going on during the exam. I noticed that you, Antonia, had your paper in such a way where you left it uncovered, which I told each student in the class not to do that. Bobby, I noticed you were copying her paper. So because both of you were involved in this, both of you received an F on the final. Now, of course, Bobby probably wasn't going to pass anyway. But Antonia has the most to lose because this was her paper, this was her assignment, and this was her exam that she worked her tail off to study. So it just goes to show you, if you don't make a good decision when it counts, you can receive the same consequence as someone who hasn't taken the time to do the work. So that's why I say to students, you know, it's not just enough to not cheat off someone else's paper. Don't let anybody else cheat off your paper either, because you're still participating in that process. So it's very, very important to think about that. Okay? So, you know, there's other forms of academic dishonesty. You know, purposely allowing them to copy from your paper, which I just gave an example, giving homework, test, term paper, other academic work to another student, lying to your instructor or college official to enhance your grade. There's a lot of things students have done, and sometimes they spend more time trying to figure out how to cheat than actually study, which to me makes no sense. But anyway, that's a whole other story. We've had students steal tests, we've had students force signatures on things, we've had students do some crazy things. But I know none of you in this room will do that, right? Okay, so these are the consequences of academic dishonesty. If you engage in any of that kind of behavior, you can receive a failing grade on the test, paper, or exam. You can have a course grade lowered, or you can actually receive an F in the class if that assignment is a substantial part of your grade. That's just the grade. The administrative consequences means you could be placed on disciplinary probation, which means straight up, you will not be playing any sport on this campus or involved in any extracurricular. In addition, you also could be placed on suspension where you're not allowed to come to the college, not even set foot on any of our properties, which is not a good thing. Or in some egregious cases, really serious cases, we've had students expelled where they were never allowed to set foot on any of our properties ever again in life. That's pretty serious. Rarely happens, but can happen. So, you know, and we've had students do things that were actually illegal as well, and those students were subject to criminal prosecution. So things can happen, and bad decisions are made. And then we have disruptive behavior. Disruptive behavior has many forms. It's being disruptive in class when the instructor is talking and your cell phone's going off, or you're having side conversations with your classmates or your friends, or you're getting up, walking around while the instructor's talking. That's not acceptable, okay? Physical or verbal abuse of someone, being verbally abusive or rude to another student, classmate, staff member, any other person on campus, okay? Damaging college property, stealing items on campus. We've had these things happen. Also, we've had people be willfully engaging in conduct that's resulted in someone being injured on campus. We've had students misuse college facilities. We've had all kinds of things. Of course, again, I don't expect this to happen, but I need to let you know that we are not going to tolerate any kind of behavior that violates our policies and is disruptive in nature. Okay? We've had students gamble, hazing, and I know hazing can be big in athletics and fraternities and other types of organizations, and that's also not acceptable. Okay? All right. Including and other things, including using what we call fighting words or engaging in expression which is obscene, libelous, or slanderous. We had a situation with a former football player a few years ago where the student was actually practicing with the football team here and decided he wanted to go play at Foothill. And he left his campus and went over there. Well, when the two teams met, Foothill and De Anza, here at De Anza, that young man decided after Foothill narrowly beat us, that he was going to go into the De Anza locker room and taunt some of the Foothill players. And he actually almost caused a huge fight. Well, when that young man ended up in my office, trust me, I had a lot to say to him. I did not play. I was serious about the fact that he needs to understand the consequences of his actions. And as a result, he was placed on disciplinary probation. By the time he left my office, he was crying. So, you know, you really have to think about the fact that anything that you think might be fun or funny at the time is not funny if it's going to cause some kind of fight, some sort of incident, or some sort of problem. Okay? And then, of course, the consequences of such behavior is similar to the academic consequences. Being placed on disciplinary probation, being suspended, being expelled. In some cases, students have been subject to criminal prosecution when what they did violated the law. So, the other thing I want to talk about too is bullying on campus. Bullying does occur. Unfortunately, you do have people in this world that do bully other people, that do go on Facebook and make negative comments, harassing comments, that make other people feel ostracized and less than and belittled and humiliated. I think bullying is horrible. I think bullying is disgusting, and I think people that engage in that kind of behavior lack empathy or lack any self-control, and a lot of things that we talked about earlier in my presentation surrounding emotional intelligence. Anyone who feels the need to bully another person really is not someone who's managing their emotions well, and is willing to inflict pain and humiliation on someone else. That demonstrates that person really has a lot of things they need to work on. And I expect that each of you will not only not bully, but if you see someone being bullied, that you'll intervene. Because each one of us, at some point, could have been a victim of that. Each one of us have had family members or friends that have experienced that, and it hurts. It's a hurtful thing, and I expect you never hear about that. And if it happens on this campus, it's reported to me. And I don't want to have to hear that any of the students that I've spoken to today were engaged in that. And if any of you ever are in a situation where that's happened to you when you're being bullied, please let me know, let your coach know, let someone know. It's really very important. Okay? So, the next thing I want to talk about is what we call making the grade. And this is really important, not just for you to maintain eligibility. Yes, it's important to maintain eligibility, but it's also important for you to be academically successful here. How many of you in this room have a academic goal? In other words, you want to transfer, you want to get a 2-year degree, or you want to graduate and transfer. And how many have a major where you know what your major is connected to that goal? And some of you don't, and that's okay. How many of you just don't know? And you don't have to raise your hand, but just think about it. The Anza is a place that has a lot of resources available to you. You do have counseling, academic counseling available. If you know you want to transfer or get a degree, but you're not quite sure what it is you're good at or what it is that you'd be interested in, we do have academic counseling where a counselor can sit down with you and talk about what are your interests, what are your skills, what are the things you like to do, what are the things that you find to be fascinating to you, and what would you want to do for a job? Because I'm going to tell you, while all of you may be excellent at your sport, there are thousands upon thousands of other people in this country who are excellent at your sport. And even if you were to pursue a professional athletic career, that career may be very short-lived. You know, there are so many athletes every year that go forward and work toward their athletic goals, and they end up being injured. Some of them irreparably injured where they can never pursue that academic goal again, athletic goal again. And so it's really important to look for the long term. What are you here for besides just athletics? We were told that all of you are here to develop yourself academically for that reason. But also, you know, even if you were to make it and you made a lot of money, you need to know what to do with that money. I can't tell you how many sad stories we've all heard about these well-paid athletes make lots of money, and then they end up being out of their sport, and 5 years later they're absolutely broke, down and out, because they didn't know how to manage their resources. So college has a lot of things it can offer you in terms of knowing how to manage the resources that you have, okay? So I'm just going to give you a few little tips for academic success. The simple things sometimes are the things that we miss. Make sure you read the syllabus, which is what we call, as a nickname, a green sheet. That syllabus has all of the assignments typically you have for the quarter. It has the books that you have to purchase. It has the deadlines. It has the timelines. It has the policies for the class. It has everything the instructor wants you to know about that class. It's also a contract between you and that instructor in terms of what his expectations or her expectations are of you, and what it is that you need to do in the class, as well as how to interact with him or her. So that's very important. Make sure you complete all the required course reading and course materials. That is so important. It's important when you get those books, yeah, sometimes they give you a lot of reading. You have to crack those have to make sure you understand the material. If you don't understand the material, that's okay. But make sure you seek help and support, and don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't understand something. I would advise every student in this room to get to know your instructors. Go to their office hour. They all have time set aside in their schedule, typically if they're full-time. Even if they're part-time, many of them are willing to come and meet with students before class. Introduce yourself. Let them know who you are. That way, when you go ask questions, they know who you are. And faculty members really like to get to know students, and they've gotten to the educational field as an instructor because they enjoy helping people learn. It's important to develop those positive relationships with your faculty members, okay? And it's really good because if at some point you have questions about the material or you have questions about an exam or an assignment, they're willing to help you. That's what they're there for. Sit in the front of the class whenever possible. There's nothing worse than having someone assume that you're not as engaged in the class because you sit in the back of the room. Sometimes that's the only seat available, but it's important, whenever possible, to sit in the front. It's also going to help you pay closer attention. Turn off your cell phone before you go in the classroom. That's the first thing. No texting, no talking on your phone, none of that. No ring, 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 no little ringtones and all that. No, turn it off. There's nothing that someone will tell you in the course of the time during that class is more important than what you're learning in that classroom. Okay? And then be attentive in class, especially while the instructor is speaking. Avoid side conversations or other kind of distraction. And then it's important to actively participate in group assignments and discussion. That's where you're going to learn the most is from your classmates and engaging and discussing the topics and the information in the class. That's where it's going to be reinforced. Okay? Also, study hard. Take all your class assignments and exams seriously and avoid procrastination. Now, I was here yesterday and I heard Ms. Alves-Lima talking about procrastination. It's really important to know how to schedule yourself, how to organize your time to avoid procrastination. Because procrastination is like the death knell of college success. How many of you in this room, when you were in high school or college somewhere else or middle school somewhere else, knew you had this huge assignment, waited and waited and waited and waited and waited until the night before it was due, slapped it together, and then when you were done, realized you could have done a better job? I have done that, and I know the stress, the worry, the anxiety, the staying up all night, that is not good. And then you get your paper back, and then you're like, man, you know what, I knew this stuff. I could have done a better job if I simply planned my time, been more focused and organized, I could have done a better job. Meanwhile, you look at the person next to you, and they get a better grade than you, and you think, oh, this person ain't gonna be smarter than me. Why did they get a better grade than I did? Why? Because they were prepared and they planned out how they were gonna do their work. Okay? Commit adequate time for your studies, 2 hours of study time for every hour of class per week. And she gave you that formula, which actually equals, when you're looking at how much time for school, it's 3 times the number of units, which is pretty much the same as what I'm telling you here. So you really want to make sure you spend enough time. And then study with other people. Some people study best in groups. Don't be feeling like you have to be isolated and then you have to know everything yourself. Sometimes you study better when you learn from other students. Maybe they understand the part of the material better than you do. Maybe you understand the part better than they do. You guys get together. You guys can actually help each other. You can drill each other on the information. But make sure that the people that you're studying with are serious about their studies and are doing well in the class. Don't study with your buddies who you will know are not serious about it. You guys end up playing video games or doing other stuff that has nothing to do with the subject. Make sure that study time is committed to really studying. And then find a quiet place to study that's free of distraction. Our cell phone, that thing constantly buzzing. I left mine in my office. Because if not, I'd be constantly looking. If I know I'm going to be somewhere where it's important, and for me, I felt all of you were important, I left that cell phone somewhere else. I didn't even want it on me because the temptation to want to know what's happening was just too great. Okay? So all of you make sure that you find a way to study outside of distraction. Okay? Now this is the thing that I really think is probably the most important about what we're going to talk about today, and it's really about making positive choices. Practical advice for avoiding the pitfalls caused by negative choices. And trust me, I'm an older woman, older than I was, hopefully, and I'm probably old enough to be everyone in this room except for the three faculty members here, your mothers. I'm probably old enough to be all of your moms. And I have seen throughout my life and my career, from my own personal experience, and also through my career, so many young people derailed in their life from their dreams and their goals and their potential by making bad choices. And sometimes it's just a momentary thing that has an impact that follows them the rest of their lives. And I don't want to have any of that happen to any of you in this room. So making positive choices, you really need to understand that this is college, and you need to understand the difference between high school and college. The major difference is that we expect you to think for yourself. We expect you to prepare yourself, plan for yourself, spend your time wisely, be self-motivated. We're here to motivate and support you when needed, but we don't expect to hold your hand throughout the entire process. All of you are going to have to learn to be responsible for your own work, your own time, your own assignments, your own life. This is sort of that bridge into adulthood. And then it really is important to, again, be sure to take your academic work seriously and understand that you're a student first and an athlete second. And I know that's hard to hear, because I know many of you really love your sport, and I understand that, I get that, and I think it's important to have passion about your sport, but be as passionate about developing your mind and your intellect as you are about your body and your athletic ability, because both together are where going to carry you successfully through life. Avoid associations with negative people and negative places. I cannot emphasize this enough. How many of you in this room have an associate, a friend, even a family member that you know you care about the person, you know them most of your life, but you know every time you hang with them, there's this little hesitation and a feeling that something may go down when you hang with them that may be crazy or could put you in a really weird situation. I think almost everybody in this room probably knows somebody. The person probably smokes too much weed, person parties and hangs out. They drive reckless, they do things, there are things that they do that really can put you in a compromised situation. Probably most of you know somebody like that. And sometimes it's hard to break away from those associations because these are people we know most of our lives, right? Or they're close to us or even family members. It's really important to avoid negative associations and negative people. I'm going to tell you guys about an experience that happened to me half my life ago or more. And I was similar to you all's age, I'm sure. I grew up, this is going to give you a little bit of a clue about my age. I grew up during the crack epidemic of the 80s and 90s. And at that time, drugs were everywhere right. And I grew up in the heart of East San Jose. And I had a lot of friends and a lot of associates that were selling drugs, that were on drugs, that were involved in that life. You know, fast money, nice cars, nice clothes. You had 16, 17-year-old Goldman branded cars, you know, big wads of cash. You know, to all of us it looked like, wow, you know. But there is an underbelly to that. And there's a flip side of that, and there's a negative side to that people often don't think about. Most of those young men and young women that I knew were either dead or in prison. Very few of them made it out of that life with any form of wholeness to their lives. Most of them ended up dead in places, and just straight dead, many of them. I remember one particular night, and I was probably about 18, cute girl. I wasn't in, even I could say that. And I remember hanging out with some guys. They were neighborhood guys, nice guys, you know, we kind of grew up with them in high school. And one of them was selling, he was slinging, and he had a nice car, and me and my girlfriend were hanging with him and his friends. And we're sitting there, we're just chit-chatting and giggling and laughing. Wasn't really going out with them, just talking to them. And all of a sudden, this really bright light was showing on the car, and we heard a police, because they used to creep through the neighborhood looking. And they said, please step out of the car. And in those few seconds, I thought my heart was going to pound out of my chest. Because I thought, oh my God, does this guy have drugs in this car? I'm in this car that I know is a known drug dealer. Does he have drugs in this car? And if somehow I'm going to be involved in this situation with this guy. Fortunately, at that point, he had sold all of his inventory for the night and didn't have any on him. But if he had had drugs in that car and I had been there, who knows where I could have ended up? Because I know some young women who were dating drug dealers, when the cops would come, they would ask their girls to hide the drugs on them, because if you didn't have a female cop, they wouldn't frisk you at that time. And that was a strategy that they used. And the young girls were just happy to be, you know, going nice places with guys who, you know, bought them, you know, took them out to eat and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And they had boyfriends that had money that did things for them. But they didn't realize the sort of the negative side of that. Many of those young women were caught because they were in possession of drugs for the purpose of sale, and some of them ended up in prison. And I knew a couple young women that happened to, and I thought about that, and I just almost could see my whole life flash before me. I was terrified. Fortunately, again, there were no drugs found, but what if that had turned out differently? I wouldn't be standing here today, possibly. Who knows where I would be? So all of you need to think about those associations. Avoid negative outlets for stress and boredom, such as drugs, excessive drinking, and irresponsible sexual behavior. You need to think about what you do with your body. And you need to think about how you handle stress, anxiety, and frustration. Many times people turn to the wrong things as a way of handling that. Find ways to cope with your emotions, and that's going back to the concept we talked about at the beginning of this presentation. Use careful judgment about attending parties or occasions where alcohol is served. When alcohol is served, people, when they drink too much alcohol or engage in alcohol and they can't hold their alcohol, things happen. Really bad things happen. So be careful, be mindful. And then also, if you're underage, don't drink. Don't drink. It's just gonna put you in a situation where you may end up doing something you regret. If you're legal drinking age, never become so intoxicated that you forget where you are, what you're doing. Never get in behind the wheel of a car after you've been drinking, and never get in the car with someone who has been drinking, who goes behind you. We've all known people in this room, probably, who got into accidents and been either killed or seriously injured because they were drinking when they were driving, or they're in the car with someone who was driving. And if you want to end your athletic career, you definitely don't want to do that. Okay? Because that really could injure you or even take your life. Always wear a seatbelt. And I know that seems simple, but accidents happen. And then also be very careful about putting too much information on social networking sites. It can come back to bite you. It can come back to haunt you. Because employers and colleges, they look at those networks. They look to see what kind of character that you're showing other people on social networking. And they're trying to decide, is this the kind of student we want at our institution? And I think most importantly, think before you act. Ask yourself, if I do this, especially if you're getting that little voice telling you it's not such a good idea, am I going to bring shame on my family, my team, my college, or myself? And if the answer to all of those is no, then that's probably an okay thing to do. If you think about it, if any of these things you're confronted with, because things can happen just like that, think about it. Really think about it before you act. And don't let other people influence you in ways that can lead you down a negative path. I think that's pretty much have to say about that. I just want to know, anybody have any questions or comments? Well, I think we have Ms. Mary coming back.